3 seconds. 18 months of composure, gone. A name, a flicker of panic, then rage. If you've ever wondered what's behind that mask, stay. Because understanding it changes how you protect yourself. Many aren't confident. They're running from terror, and they'll torture a relationship before facing it. If you've ever wondered what drives someone who seems to feel nothing while causing devastating damage to those who feel everything, today's deep dive reveals the internal prison many narcissists inhabit and why understanding this changes how you protect yourself from their influence. Act 1. The internal terror. The core wound revelation. Narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD as clinicians call it, isn't what most people think it is. Behind the grandiose exterior lies something far more tragic and terrifying. Many individuals with NPD aren't confident. They're often running from what psychoanalytic theory calls annihilation anxiety, the terror of psychological death. What creates this terror? NPD develops from complex causes including genetics, early trauma, excessive praise, or emotional neglect. One documented pattern involves children learning their authentic self wasn't acceptable. Vulnerability invited attack. Needs led to abandonment. Love required constant performance. Donald Winnicott described the false self, a protective facade developed during misattuned caregiving. Many individuals with NPD operate from such constructed personas rather than authentic identity. Neuroimaging studies show their brains display heightened activity in regions associated with self-referential thinking and threat detection, suggesting chronic vigilance about image and perception. Here's what's crucial to understand. Explanation isn't absolution. Many people experience childhood wounds without becoming abusive. Understanding developmental patterns doesn't excuse harmful behavior. The false self-architecture. In many cases with NPD, what appears to be personality is actually a false self-system, a psychological construct built to hide and protect a core self they believe is fundamentally defective. Think of wearing a perfectly fitted mask constantly. Beautiful, impressive, attention-getting, but so heavy you can barely hold your head up. You're terrified of anyone seeing underneath, and you've forgotten your real face. Many individuals with NPD live this exhaustion daily. They wake up immediately beginning the performance, checking mirrors obsessively, not from vanity, but terror that something authentic might leak through. One client described keeping mental notes during every interaction. Did I seem successful enough? Did anyone notice my mistakes? Was I charming enough to make them forget my flaws? The constant performance was so draining, he'd collapse into emptiness crashes when alone. Even when alone, many can't drop the act. The false self becomes so dominant that authentic self essentially hides, sometimes for decades. If someone in your life displays these patterns and it's affecting your well-being, professional guidance can help you navigate the situation safely. The midnight terror. Here's what empaths never see: the narcissist's 3 a.m. breakdown. The moment when the adrenaline of daily performance wears off and they're left alone with the voice that never stops whispering, "You're a fraud. Everyone will figure it out eventually. You don't deserve any of this." These panic attacks often manifest as physical symptoms: racing heart, sweating, nausea. But they're not having anxiety about external threats. They're having anxiety about themselves, about the possibility that their carefully constructed image might crack and reveal the worthless person they believe lives underneath. The narcissist develops elaborate middle-of-the-night rituals to manage this terror. Some rehearse conversations they'll have the next day, perfecting their responses to maintain their image. Others engage in what psychologists call mental reviewing, obsessively replaying every interaction from the day, analyzing whether anyone saw through their performance. Some develop addiction patterns specifically to numb this internal voice. The drugs, alcohol, shopping, sexual encounters, these aren't recreational choices. They're desperate attempts to silence the inner critic that never stops cataloging their inadequacies. Act 2. The emotional wasteland. The emotional void. Many individuals with NPD struggle with something called Alexithymia, difficulty identifying and describing one's own feelings. Studies suggest this affects a substantial proportion of people with narcissistic traits, particularly difficulties identifying and describing feelings, notably higher than general population rates. Picture navigating emotional terrain without a compass. Someone with NPD feeling sad might experience it as fatigue or irritation. Fear might register as anger or superiority. Shame often manifests as rage directed outward. This emotional blindness can create dependency patterns. They may unconsciously seek highly sensitive individuals who serve as emotional translators, people who feel and identify emotions they cannot access directly. This isn't always conscious manipulation. For many, it feels like finding someone who gets them intuitively. However, some individuals with NPD, particularly those with higher insight or co-occurring conditions, may consciously exploit others' emotional sensitivity. Emotional limitations never excuse abusive behavior. Whether someone's harmful actions stem from unconscious patterns or calculated choices, the impact on you remains the same. Your empathy deserves protection regardless of their psychological struggles.
The intimacy terror. For the narcissist, genuine intimacy doesn't feel like connection, it feels like impending death. Every step toward authentic closeness triggers their annihilation anxiety because intimacy requires dropping the mask, and dropping the mask means risking complete rejection of who they really are. Think about the moments when you felt most genuinely known and loved by someone. Probably moments when you were completely yourself, maybe even in your worst moments, and they loved you anyway. For the narcissist, this scenario isn't beautiful, it's terrifying. If someone sees them without the mask and rejects them, it confirms their deepest fear, that their authentic self is fundamentally unlovable. So they create what psychologists call the intimacy paradox. They desperately crave the very thing they're terrified to allow. They want to be known and loved, but they can't risk being known because they might not be loved. This creates the push-pull dynamic that drives empaths crazy. The narcissist draws you close when they need emotional regulation or validation, but pushes you away the moment you get close enough to see through their performance. It's not calculated cruelty, it's desperate self-preservation. I've watched narcissists sabotage their best relationships at the exact moment when their partner was offering unconditional love. The partner would say something like, "I love you exactly as you are," and within days, the narcissist would create a crisis that ended the relationship. The offer of authentic love triggered such overwhelming terror that destruction felt safer than vulnerability. The envy engine. The DSM-5 identifies envy as a core feature of NPD, but this isn't simple jealousy. It can function as a psychological survival mechanism. Many individuals with NPD operate from zero-sum thinking, the belief that resources like attention, love, and success are finite. When others achieve, it can feel threatening to their own worth. Clinical observations suggest this pattern significantly affects people with NPD. Colleagues' praise, friends' happiness, or partners' independence may trigger comparative devaluation, compulsive focus on others' flaws or failures. Not everyone with narcissistic traits experiences this equally. Some maintain capacity for genuine celebration. Severity varies based on trauma history, attachment patterns, and individual factors. Understanding this pattern explains seemingly inexplicable behaviors, why achievements met criticism, why happiness triggered discontent, why support felt conditional on remaining less successful. This knowledge serves your safety, not their excuse-making. Envy-driven behavior remains harmful regardless of psychological origins. Act 3. The control addiction. The puppet master fantasy. For the narcissist, controlling others isn't about power, it's about survival. When they can predict and influence your reactions, manage your emotions, and direct your behavior, it creates the illusion that they can control whether you abandon them. Think of it like this. Imagine you believed that everyone you loved would eventually leave you, and the only way to prevent that was to make yourself so essential to their emotional stability that they couldn't function without you. That's the narcissist's unconscious strategy. They become addicted to what psychologists call emotional regulation outsourcing. Instead of learning to manage their own internal states, they manage their anxiety by managing you. If they can keep you slightly off balance, constantly seeking their approval, perpetually trying to prove your worth to them, then you're too busy to notice their inadequacies or consider leaving them. The control tactics aren't calculated malice. They're desperate attempts at attachment security. The love bombing, the intermittent reinforcement, the emotional hot and cold cycles, these create what trauma specialists call trauma bonding. But from the narcissist's perspective, they're just doing whatever works to keep you emotionally invested. But here's the truly tragic part. The more control they exert, the more they prove to themselves that the relationship isn't based on genuine love. Deep down, they know that if they had to manipulate you to stay, then you don't really want to be there. This creates an internal cycle where their control tactics generate the very evidence they fear most, that they are indeed unlovable. The criticism weapon. The narcissist's constant criticism serves a specific psychological function. It maintains the distance necessary for their emotional safety while keeping you focused on earning their approval rather than questioning their behavior. Picture this scenario. You accomplish something you're proud of and share it with them. Instead of celebration, they immediately point out what could have been better, what you missed, how it could have been improved. This isn't because they want to help you grow, because your success triggered their envy and their inadequacy fears simultaneously. By criticizing your achievement, they serve multiple psychological needs at once. They diminish the threat your success poses to their superiority. They redirect your attention from celebrating your win to seeking their validation. They maintain their position as the judge of what's valuable and worthwhile. And most importantly, they prevent you from feeling too confident, because confident partners are more likely to leave. The criticism often focuses on things you're most proud of or most insecure about, because these areas generate the strongest emotional reactions. Your strong reaction proves to them that they still have emotional influence over you, which temporarily soothes their abandonment anxiety. But the narcissist often doesn't consciously realize they're being critical. In their mind, they're being helpful, realistic, or honest. The criticism feels to them like valuable feedback because they genuinely cannot tolerate the cognitive dissonance of acknowledging your success while maintaining their superior position. The empathy deficiency. Here's something crucial to understand. Individuals with NPD often have excellent cognitive empathy, the ability to read emotions, but virtually no effective empathy, feeling with emotions. Think of cognitive empathy as a psychological X-ray machine. Many individuals with NPD can see your emotional bones, your fears, desires, triggers, vulnerabilities with remarkable precision. They notice micro-expressions, voice tone changes, behavioral patterns. They're often better at reading you than you are at reading yourself. But affective empathy, the ability to actually feel what someone else is feeling, is where the system breaks down. They can see that you're hurt, understand what caused it, predict how you'll react, and even know what would help you feel better. But they can't actually feel your pain as their own. This creates what I call the emotional mime effect. The narcissist can perfectly mimic appropriate empathic responses because they've studied what caring looks like. But there's no authentic emotional resonance behind the performance. They say the right words, make the right expressions, even take the right actions, but something feels hollow because it is hollow. The tragedy is that many narcissists desperately want to feel genuine empathy. They know something is missing in their emotional responses. They can see that others have access to feelings they can't reach, but the same psychological walls that protect them from their own vulnerability also cut them off from authentic connection with others' emotional experiences.
Act 4. The breaking points. When the mask cracks, specific triggers can cause what clinicians term narcissistic injury, events that threaten a grandiose self-image.
These breaking points reveal underlying vulnerability, but they're also when individuals with NPD can become most harmful to others. These injuries often involve genuine criticism from respected sources, loss of status or control, partner independence or boundary setting, or aging-related changes that threaten their self-concept. What follows isn't typical anger, it's what clinicians term narcissistic rage, a psychological state aimed at restoring equilibrium by any means necessary. During these episodes, individuals aren't consciously choosing cruelty. Their psychological system is in emergency mode, trying to rebuild their shattered self-image. Understanding the mechanism never justifies accepting abusive behavior. Psychological explanations don't equal moral excuses. If someone becomes destructive when their image is threatened, the appropriate response is protection, not tolerance. Under acute threat, humans generally show increased threat response and reduced empathic processing. Individuals with pronounced narcissistic traits may exhibit similar patterns. The pattern often includes attacking the source of the injury, attempting to recruit others against their attacker, rewriting history to maintain their narrative, or discarding relationships that threaten their self-concept. The relationship cycle. The narcissistic relationship cycle isn't a conscious manipulation strategy, it's an unconscious pattern driven by their attachment terror and emotional regulation needs. Love bombing happens because in the early stages of relationships, the narcissist genuinely feels like they might have found someone who can save them from their internal emptiness. The intense attention, gifts, promises, and declarations of love aren't calculated deceptions. They're desperate attempts to secure attachment before you have a chance to see their authentic self and reject them. During this phase, they're running on what psychologists call fantasy bonding. They're not falling in love with you. They're falling in love with the idea that you might be the person who can finally make them feel whole. The intensity feels romantic, but it's actually desperation dressed up as passion. Devaluation begins when reality sets in. You turn out to be a real person with your own needs, opinions, and limitations, rather than the perfect solution to their psychological problems. The same qualities they love-bombed you for, your empathy, your nurturing nature, your ability to see their potential, start feeling threatening because they require vulnerability from them in return. The devaluation serves multiple psychological functions. It creates distance when intimacy feels dangerous. It maintains their superior position when equality feels threatening. It tests whether you'll stay even when they're not performing perfectly. It's cruel, but it's not consciously designed cruelty. It's unconscious psychological self-protection. Discard happens when their terror of abandonment becomes so overwhelming that they abandon you first. In their psychological logic, it's better to be the one who leaves than risk being the one who gets left. The discard often happens right when you're offering genuine love or when the relationship is moving toward deeper commitment, exactly when their abandonment fears peak. The aging narcissist. As some individuals with entrenched narcissistic traits age, maintaining grandiosity can become harder. Clinicians sometimes describe narcissistic collapse when supply erodes. Picture someone who has built their entire identity around being exceptional, attractive, successful, or admired. Now, imagine watching that foundation crumble as they age out of relevance, lose their physical appeal, get passed over for younger colleagues, or watch their children surpass their achievements. For most people, aging involves a natural process of accepting limitations and finding meaning in different areas of life. For individuals with pronounced narcissistic traits, aging can feel like slow-motion psychological death because it systematically strips away every external validation source they've relied on for emotional regulation. Some aging individuals with NPD become more demanding, more critical, more desperate for attention and control. They may develop what appears to be late-onset paranoia, convinced that others are conspiring against them, trying to diminish their importance, or plotting to abandon them. But this isn't paranoia. It's their abandonment terror finally being confirmed by natural life transitions.
Act 5. The empathic response strategy. Understanding versus excusing. Understanding someone's psychology is never the same as excusing their behavior or accepting their abuse. Individuals with NPD often develop their patterns as psychological survival strategies. Their criticism may stem from envy and insecurity. Their control attempts might originate from abandonment terror. Their lack of empathy could result from emotional numbness developed in childhood. But none of this changes the impact their behavior has on your well-being. Think of it this way. If someone is drowning and grabs you to stay afloat, understanding their panic doesn't mean you should let them pull you under. Your job is reaching safety, not drowning with them. The psychology serves one primary purpose: helping you recognize that their behavior reflects their limitations, not your worth. Their inability to celebrate your achievements isn't evidence of your mediocrity, it's evidence of their envy. Their criticism isn't insight into your flaws, it's projection of their insecurities. Individuals who understand narcissistic psychology without accepting abuse report faster recovery from narcissistic relationships, reduced self-blame and shame, better ability to maintain no contact when necessary, and improved capacity to spot red flags in future relationships. Understanding becomes empowerment when it serves your protection rather than their excuses. Strategic emotional intelligence. If you must interact with narcissistic individuals, whether for work, co-parenting, or family obligations, understanding their psychology gives you strategic advantages in protecting yourself. When you know that their criticism comes from envy, you can hear it as information about their emotional state, rather than truth about your worth. When you understand that their control attempts stem from abandonment terror, you can set boundaries without taking their reactions personally. When you recognize that their lack of empathy isn't personal rejection, but emotional incapacity, you can stop trying to earn something they're not capable of giving. The gray rock method, becoming boring and unresponsive to their emotional triggers, works because it removes the emotional supply they need for regulation. But understanding their psychology helps you gray rock more effectively by recognizing which of your responses feed their patterns and which ones starve them. For instance, defending yourself when they criticize you gives them the emotional reaction they need to feel powerful. But simply acknowledging their opinion without emotional investment, "I can see you feel that way," gives them nothing to work with. Your calm response forces them to regulate their own emotions rather than using your reactions for that purpose. Setting boundaries with narcissists requires understanding that they will test every boundary multiple times before accepting it. This isn't personal vindictiveness, it's their psychological system trying to restore the control that makes them feel safe. When you expect the testing and don't take it personally, you can maintain your boundaries consistently until they accept the new dynamic. Your recovery focus. The most important psychological work you can do isn't analyzing the narcissist's behavior, it's healing whatever wounds made you vulnerable to their manipulation in the first place. Empaths often attract narcissistic partners because they have complementary psychological wounds. The empath learned early that love requires self-sacrifice, that their needs are less important than others, that conflict is dangerous and should be avoided. The narcissist learned that vulnerability is dangerous, that others can't be trusted with their authentic self, that they must be exceptional to deserve love. These wound patterns create what psychologists call unconscious complementarity. The empath's overfunctioning enables the narcissist's underfunctioning. The narcissist's apparent confidence temporarily soothes the empath's insecurities.
The empath's emotional availability feeds the narcissist's regulation needs. The narcissist's decisiveness compensates for the empath's conflict avoidance. But healing your own wounds breaks this unconscious complementarity. When you develop secure attachment, you stop being attracted to people who need to be saved. When you heal your abandonment fears, you stop tolerating poor treatment to avoid being alone. When you develop healthy boundaries, you repel people who need to control others for emotional regulation. The narcissist in your life may never change, may never heal, may never develop the capacity for genuine empathy. But you can change, heal, and develop the capacity for healthy relationships with emotionally available partners. Your empathy was never meant to be a liability. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. Your ability to love deeply is a gift. But these gifts should be shared with people who can receive them, appreciate them, and reciprocate them, not used by people who exploit them for their own emotional regulation. 3 seconds revealed everything. Behind the polished exterior wasn't a master manipulator drunk on power. It was someone trapped in psychological patterns often formed decades earlier. Understanding the internal world of NPD isn't about sympathy, it's about strategy. When you recognize that their confidence may be performance, their criticism often projection, and their control frequently desperation, you stop taking it personally. Most importantly, their limitations aren't your responsibility to fix. Sustainable change in NPD requires intensive, specialized therapy that most individuals never pursue. Your energy serves you better focused on healing your own patterns and building relationships with emotionally available people.